I'm going to need his name, otherwise I cannot investigate this man. No, I need that for leverage. I'm not going to say, I want FBI protection, witness protection. I want to tell my story on all the networks. I want this. I'm thinking, this guy, I've just been, okay, what's his name? And he said, I'm not going to tell you. And so we're out there, on the deck with all these people. Many of them, like, watch the morning show, right? So they're seeing an interview happening right there in front of them. And I had to go for it. What is his name?
Joined today by Dale Julin, who is unbelievably a Peabody award-winning television journalist with over 40 years.
Ouch.
Just quite a remarkable career. I mean, a Peabody is, just a totally legit award, very high level. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. But when I won the Peabody, that was in the early 90s, so my hair was brown. Time has changed.
Okay.
Time has moved on. Thanks for having me.
Hey, but
Eric.
the award's still there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Eric, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And I just stumbled into your contribution to the whole Zodiac case. I interviewed Eric Kleinsmith of the Casebreakers, who work with Tom Colbert, and they did some work on Zodiac a couple of years ago. But what I did not realize until recently is that you actually were a major source for their investigation.
In the beginning, you bet. Yeah. Here. So what happened is they got a copy of Catching Zodiac, and they approached me, and Tom Colbert is a wonderful man. His wife Donna and the rest of the Casebreakers, Eric Kleinsmith, Jennifer Buchholz, I reached out and said, I need a way to get this published, because I was in a catch-22 of sorts. Because just to get to that in a second, when the FBI is supposed to say any day, hey, we caught him, thank you for your whistleblower, that sort of thing. We'll get to that in a second. And yet then it goes years and years and years, and the FBI doesn't say what they know. And we predicated 9-10 minutes of stories based upon the fact that we thought they were going to make their announcement any day. And then years go by. And so I was kind of in a catch-22 that I could not get out of, because my wonderful news executives were concerned that the FBI announcement never came. And so that's enough to have them pause publication of all that we'd done and all that we'd worked on for some time. So what happened, just to sum up, the Casebreakers took a look at the memoir that I wrote, frankly, out of frustration, because I could not get the story out. Imagine being a journalist and you can't tell your story. And so Casebreakers said, we think you caught Zodiac. Let us help you prove it. And that began a several-year relationship with Casebreakers, in which I simply cooperated fully, and they took it and took off and did a whole lot more work.
Okay, let's go ahead and just jump into what caused the book. And it's remarkable because this coming December, 10 years ago, is the start of your involvement, when, from what I understand, a homeless man called into the television station where you worked.
So it's early December 2014, and I'm one of the morning anchors at KSBW TV8 in Salinas, the first television station in Salinas, Monterey, Santa Cruz. And I'm just doing the morning show, the 2-hour morning show. And our producer, Katie Coroto, was doing the overnight shift at the time, because that's how you put a morning show on. You have somebody or two people or more spend all night putting the show together. She goes, KSBW, at like 1:30 in the morning. And that started the whole thing, because after I got off the show at 7 o'clock, Katie comes over, and Katie says, you like really strange stories, Dale. That's why I give them to you on the air, and take a look at this. I said, what? She says, okay, some whack job, her words, some whack job called me at 1:30 in the morning, said that this guy is chasing him named the Zodiac Killer, because he figured out, the guy on the run, this homeless man, figured out that this mentor of his for decades up in the high mountains areas of Yosemite was a Zodiac killer. And the Zodiac killer found out and tried to kill him, hit him with a hammer. He went on the run. All this is on the phone call. And I just started laughing, Eric, because over the years in Fresno, Bakersfield, Sacramento, San Francisco, Santa Rosa, all the different TV stations I'd worked at, it was a running joke because in 1970, everyone was afraid of the Zodiac Killer. Millions of people were terrorized by the Zodiac Killer, including a young 14-year-old Dale Julin, because all the killings were happening right around where I grew up in the North Bay area of San Francisco.
On that note, wasn't the movie Dirty Harry, the bad guy Scorpio,
Yes.
actually based
Yes.
on the Zodiac Killer,
Yes.
up to and including the school bus scene?
Yes, and I was one of the kids on one of those school buses because we lived in a place called Green Valley, just outside of Fairfield, which is 45 miles, from Sacramento and 45 miles from San Francisco on Highway 80, and right in there, in that area, around in Napa, at Lake Berryessa, at sites in Little Rock Springs and Vallejo and Benicia, and then San Francisco. The killings were happening all around us, and he sent in the Zodiac did to the Chronicle in October of '69 after killing the cab driver in San Francisco. He sent another letter saying, among other things, school children make nice targets. I think I shall shoot out the tires and pick off the kiddies as they come jumping off the bus, to paraphrase. And that led deputy squad cars across the rural areas of San Francisco for more than a month of the Bay Area to trail every school bus, including my own, because I was like 13, 14 years old. And I would turn around at the back of and I would wave to the deputy. It's in the book. I would wave to the deputy because I read the Chronicle. My dad was a navigator in the Air Force, okay? And we had 3 subscriptions, and we watched Walter Cronkite. And, we did that. And so I was a news hound even when I was just young. And I read those stories, and they scared the living, may I say this on your show? The living crap out of the young kid, because I knew what was going on. And our principal was sitting behind the bus driver, and he never took the bus, right? He was the principal. And the reason why he was there, I later learned, was because he had a gun under his jacket, and he was trying to protect the children. I let that all go, Eric. That was years ago. Let it all go. But then this phone call comes, and I have to laugh in the newsroom. Flash forward to 2014. I have to laugh at Katie. I said, Katie, we used to get a dozen of these calls a month. I know who the Zodiac Killer is, right? Back in the 80s and in the 90s, and it started to be a trickle. But even in the aughts, and even within the last 10 years, somebody says, who the Zodiac Killer is. Who wants to take it this time? It was a joke. But then Katie said something. She said, "What?" I took his name, I took his notes, and I told him that I had this old anchor man, Uncle Dale, as she liked to call me, that grew up in that area, would know something about it. So I asked him to send some email pictures and stuff. And so I looked at the first email. And the caption on the email was simple. It said, "Been scared 20 years." And that picture is one of 2 that was sent to me by then we started to call him a whistleblower at that point, not just a crazy homeless guy.
You called him Will originally?
Chris Avery. Will Avery, yes. Okay. So that is the 1969 police sketch from San Francisco of the cabbie killer. And that is a picture of a hunter cutting a doe, not a buck, but a doe, from head to toe, and just looking up at the camera. And most times you don't kill does, right? But he was doing it. And I was later told by our whistleblower, Chris Avery, that he would kill all kinds of animals just because it was thrilling. And so that was the first of 5 or 6 pictures that were sent with descriptions of the Zodiac Killer being sent. And what we did was, I just used to play hunches, and I just had a hunch, just something that said, that guy looks familiar. that guy looks familiar. And so I asked my boss, Lawton Dodd, to let me not produce the noon show and to go out and buy a sandwich for this homeless guy.
Now, from what I understand, you met Chris. We'll just say Chris now, Chris Avery. Not only were you there buying him lunch, but also your assistant news director and a photographer.
George. Yeah. It was just crazy. Okay, so the boss says, hey, you're buying into this too much because you grew up in it, right? I'm sending Jillian out with you because she can be, the old thing about being a good cop, bad cop, right? I can be the good cop. She can be the bad cop. We'll see if this homeless guy who's, calling us out of the blue because we used to watch the station when he used to live in Monterey when he was a kid. And we were the blowtorch station, which just means we were the top station by far. And so that's why he contacted us. And so we are going to buy a sandwich at a deli in Marina, Seaside. And we drive down there and he's not there. And then I get a call and he says, I'm across the street. And I look and I see this white guy, about 45 years old, in shorts, baseball cap, standing there waiting. And I say to Jillian, I'll walk across the street and get us started. You guys, set up the camera discreetly a little other way, and we'll see what's going on here. And she said, hey, we don't know about this backwoodsman. We don't know what he's like. And I said, okay, but you're right there. And look at all those people. It's a deck in front of a expensive Chinese or Asian restaurant. It's a deck with people out there sitting in the sunshine. And he's just waiting. So I feel okay. And I walk up, and they set up the camera. And he stands, puts his hands out. With one hand, he's shaking hands. With the other, he's holding an expensive bottle of wine. And he says, Dale Julin, like he was an announcer. Dale Julin, I'm about to give you the biggest story of your life. Come on, let's celebrate and have a drink. And Jillian just shows up right then, grabs the bottle, says, we are not drinking here. And they instantly hated each other. So the good cop, bad cop was working really well. And we sat down. My name is Chris Avery. I'm on the run for my life. I've been homeless for weeks, walking down from Groveland in the Yosemite area ever since my mentor, the father, the old man, ran our posse of younger guys for years and hunting trips and all that. I figured out he was a Zodiac Killer. And when he found out that I was thinking that, he tried to kill me. He threw a hammer at me and bruised me. We could see the bruise.
Mm-hmm. So is that recent?
He'd done the run for a couple weeks. He either hitchhiked or walked in the woods, or he used the outdoorsman skills that he said the old man, he always wanted to be called the old man, Gary Francis Post, had taught these guys. And he went first to her station, KCRA in Sacramento, because it was closer. And I used to work there. And they wouldn't even let him out of the lobby. Bye-bye, Zodiac Killer. No. And then he called the Chronicle. And somebody on their assignment desk took the number and all that, but they didn't get back to him. Then he called the San Francisco Police Department, and they didn't get back to him. So he just kind of kept going down to where he once lived in the Monterey area. And he simply called us because he was living in laundromats or, living on the beach, that sort of thing, to keep alive. And frankly, if I hadn't had that background, if I hadn't lived it myself all those years ago, I would have blown him off. But I was going to blow him off right now because as soon as we got there, we looked down and I was going to buy him a sandwich. I still remember French onion soup. There's Asian course number 1, 2, 3. There's a bottle of red wine. I'm thinking, I've just been taken by a homeless man with a cockamamie story. But, we continued the good cop, bad cop. I asked him to explain. He explained, my name is Chris Avery. For many years, I lived up in the Groveland area. I was mentored by a man that I now come to believe is the Zodiac Killer.
He had a great side. He just didn't have a conscience. He could kill indiscriminately, and it's like one of those letters. I think they called him the most dangerous animal. And I mean, He's pretty much proven that over the years. He couldn't even stop after he moved up here. He still had to continue to kill just to, even if it was small animals, just to make himself feel better. And of course, he did end up killing other people, but we can go into that later.
And he went through the story, but within a few minutes, Jillian was so upset about how stupid it was to be taken by a homeless man on the Zodiac Killer story that she said, you know what, this is wrapping up now. I'm going to go get the bill. And so I had nothing. He didn't even tell me the name. And so I said,
how much was the bill?
Just the bill. And I'm saying, I'm going to need his name. Otherwise, I cannot investigate this man. No, I need that for leverage. I'm not going to I want FBI protection, witness protection. I want to tell my story on all the networks. I want this. And I'm thinking, this guy, I've just been, okay, what's his name? And he said, I'm not going to tell you. And so we're out there, on the deck with all these people. Many of them, I watch the morning show, right? So they're seeing an interview happening right there in front of me. And I had to go for it. What is his name? And everyone jumps. It's not my style. But I had nothing otherwise. And Chris Avery, I still remember, he rocks back and then rocks forward as if he's about to announce the coming of the king and says, Gary Francis Post, with an E on the end. Well, thank you, Mr. Avery. Gary Francis Post. The interview essentially over at that point. Jillian came back, and stood up, and he said, "Look, I hate her." And I said, "That is my boss, right? And we are together here. You seem like you're a good guy. I think you might believe me." And he put his hand out, shook his hand, and off he goes. Homeless man. Jillian comes in, says, I think it was $78 for a sandwich. I'll try to make sure that, Lawton Dodd, the news director, he always nails his budget. I'll try to get him to pay for this. Otherwise, it's yours.
You're paying.
Yeah. So, but then the weirdest thing happened, because otherwise nothing was going to happen from that. Eric, I got a text because I had made the horrendous mistake, because he was on the run, of giving him my personal cell phone number, because I can't keep going back and forth on phone tags with the newsroom. And he says, feeling really depressed, no place to turn, you got to believe. And I didn't. But I had just had a nice sermon, a homily from Father Joe about Holy Cross Church in Santa Cruz on that Sunday, about how you help your fellow man, even if he's not quite your kind of man, like the Good Samaritan story. And I thought of that, and I said, well, I think it started pouring, and I'm just driving home all the way up to 37 miles to Santa Cruz, around the Monterey Bay. And I say, I think I can contact a homeless shelter we did a good story on a couple of weeks ago. Do you want that? And he goes, yes, please. So I contact them, and the homeless shelter says, yeah, we'll help you, because we did a really nice story for them, right? And they sent the last bus out and picked up Chris Avery, and he said, thank you. And that's where I thought the story was going to end.
Now, you had the name, though. Hold on. You had the name. So, obviously the story can't end there. If you have a name, you're probably going to start researching.
It was Friday. We started, but Google searches showed really nothing about Gary Francis Post, except that he'd been involved as a man in the 70s in the vandalism incident, like throwing rocks through a window or something, just the year before. So they did arrest him, but then the charges were dropped, misdemeanor. But also we knew about Pine Mountain painting. He became a house painter with a partner, Rod Hamlin, up in the Groveland area for decades. Up there, not in the San Francisco Bay Area. What's the connection there? We don't know, right? So we start that, but we have to do shows and all that, and we really put this on the back burner. But it's Saturday, the next day, and my wife wants me to go with our friends to a multi-million-dollar Monterey Bay house tour, as a charity event. And I demurred. I said, no, I've got something. Let me check it out. So I quickly learned from doing searches that I was not in a Zodiac Killer. I knew nothing about this stuff, just from the decades back. But I quickly saw that some cops online were saying, if you really want to see the original documents of the Zodiac Killer case, go to zodiackiller.com. Tom Boyd had made it his mission for decades to try to track down the Zodiac Killer. And one of the things he did was he had the section that said, suspects. But I really didn't care about the suspects because, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole again because I had nothing else to offer. But I did see the section where he saw him put the original letters sent to the newspapers by the Zodiac Killer. And I just thought right there at my desk in Santa Cruz, all right, I'm going to give this about 5 more minutes. What is the one thing I have that none of the press or police had in 1969 or 70? Well, I got this name, Gary Francis Post with an E on the end. Post with an E is just simply the archaic way of spelling post with an E on the end. And I'm looking at these letters, the original letters, not all the crap that's out there where there's that word again. What did everybody do? Well, what they did, Eric, is they would start with the first letters from 68, 69, and they would go all the way down to like 1978. And I thought, let's try some reverse engineering. So I went from the last ones, and I started going up because they were more sophisticated. And they were very interesting, all the different clues and all the things that he put on there. And I finally got a little ways up to, and the first few letters were really clumsy, but these were sophisticated. And I got to the October 27th, 1970 Halloween card. The Halloween card is a bizarre card. It shows skeletons hanging from pine trees. It shows, I feel my bones, you ache to know my name, but then why spoil the game? Everywhere around, he's teasing. He's got 14, he's got verbally 14, and he's got birds everywhere, right? It's really, truly bizarre. And I said, oh, there's a section all by itself in which he's describing in a very weird way the way he kills his victims. By fire, by knife, by gun, right? And then in the middle it says paradise slaves, right there. Paradise slaves. Paradise is spelled like a paradise, not in paradise.
Z-I-C-E.
Oh yeah, misspelled. And I thought, well, there's only so many letters there. Okay, well, I started for the first time what later became known in the newsroom and at the FBI. We went to with this shortly, and local police as the drill. And so I took the FBI and I took the police through this drill that led me to think we should pursue this, namely by gun, by knife, by fire, by rope, paradise slaves. Is there a G there? Yes. Okay, Gary Francis Post with an E. Is there an A there? Yes. An R? Yes. A Y? Yes. Okay. Is there an F there? Yes. An R? Yes. An A? Uh-huh. N? Yeah. C? Yeah. I? S? Yes, yes. And, important, with only so many letters, none of the letters, like the A's, were repeating. They were not the same letters being used twice. This was making mathematical sense at some point, like, hey, there might be something there. Is there a P there? Yes. Is there an O? Yes. The hair on the back of my neck starts to go up. Is there an S there? Yes. And I'm thinking, is there a T there? No. Is there a T there? No. All right, so much for my cockamamie theory. I was just trying to plug in, a light bulb, so to speak, but it's not going to work. Is there an E there? Of course there is. Everything but the T. Everything but the T. And I'm literally standing at my standing desk saying, everything but the T. And then I look again at that section of the card. And I look over the side and it says 14. It makes you want to say it out loud, teen. And I see, why spoil the game? He's teasing the police and press, teasing them. And then I look, and then I see it, big as day. Paradise slaves. It's a clue, Eric. It's simply a clue, right? Some people will say, well, you didn't find the actual. It's right there. And I'll tell you honestly, every time you got to that section, like the FBI, the two agents in the interview room, they go, okay, S, And I said, do you see that? They go, yes, we see the T. I didn't say it. They said it, right? It's that obvious a clue once you know what you're looking for. And at that point, I said, oh my God, I've got to call the cops. And so I call my news director, and he sends me down to Santa Cruz police chief, to, who we've done master ceremonies work with and all that sort of thing. And, he had them take a suspicious circumstances report. But as he told me, it was not their jurisdiction. And that led me over years to go to the proper jurisdictions of all the Zodiac killings. But that's got it all started. I called up Chris Avery. He was at the homeless shelter. Said, we're going to interview you again on Monday, and my boss is coming. My news director is coming this time. And so we did. And that was an off the charts, crazy interview.
Wow. Now, how much of that actually aired?
None.
Oh. So it's sitting in the archive somewhere? Interesting. Now, this is leading to a couple other issues, and I want to figure it out. You mentioned talking to the FBI, mentioned not being able to go forward, and I've also found there is a countervailing narrative from the Riverside Police and I believe one of the original San Francisco detectives. But there are people pushing back saying, nope, hell no, not him. It's Arthur Allen. And you guys are working to get some DNA tested. Why is this pushback out there? Do you have any speculation or understanding of why people don't want to test DNA?
Well, you're getting to the I guess you're getting to the end of the book, because that's where I leave it. Like, why isn't Riverside Police just looking at the DNA printouts on their screen of their killer? That DNA used to exonerate 2 previous suspects, so it's good DNA, and the DNA supplied by the Casebreakers, right on the computer screen of Gary Francis Post. We obtained his DNA last spring. And it was with a lot of good university lab work pro bono to get the kind of DNA that we needed. And what's interesting was we didn't have his DNA. We didn't have his DNA. And for your viewers, you should know that we investigated this for 3 years. To your question, why aren't they getting forward? First to the FBI, okay? First to the FBI. We went to the FBI in December 2014 with our whistleblower, who they interviewed for 2 hours, and then another hour for me. And then we later learned they sent 2 agents up to Groveland. And the old man, Gary Francis Post, now in his later 70s, at some point along the dementia spectrum, I'm not certain at that point, but he suddenly got a whole lot of dementia. Couldn't be much help to the agents. And then when they interviewed the other folks, other members of the so-called posse of younger men now in their 40s and such, they just said, our Chris Avery, that whistleblower, is a lying thief. He's a thief. He's a drug addict. Don't listen to him. The old man is like, okay. And so they come back down, the agents do, and they re-interview Avery and say, we don't believe your cockamamie story. They don't even bother to talk to me. And away they go. Well, that was January of 2015. And for the next 14 months, the Zodiac Killer, the most infamous, uncaught serial killer of the 20th century, just sat in his house in Groveland and perhaps smoked some pot, which he wanted to do with his younger men, and he'd drink brandy, and he just sat there. Right there. And we continued for months, to give the FBI on the email trail, John Connell, the head of the bureau in San Francisco, and other agents, and also the other officers who did, rightly so, San Francisco and then Vallejo. These officers, they investigated as well, because we kept on an email chain mail of all this, everything we were getting from our whistleblower, who by then had fled, also other folks up in Groveland, information about this man. Well, I assert at this point, because I'm so frustrated, that for 15 months, because the FBI did nothing, at one point he told a neighbor, who we later learned, said, hey, I need a gun. My younger, my stepson won't let me have a gun anymore because I think I might need to shoot my wife, right? Because she's thinking about going to the cops. Well, that's a weird story, right? Yeah, okay. Well, guess what happens? It's February of 2016, and she is nearly killed by her husband. The story from the officers and all that was she was thrown down the staircase by the husband post. And think about that. To your question, since that point, we later learned, Casebreakers later learned that, according to a source inside the FBI, that he became the number one suspect, a Zodiac Killer. But they still didn't make the announcement. We still didn't run the stories as a result. But from 2016 until last spring, right, he was their suspect. But in 2016, because they did nothing to put him away, he nearly killed his wife. I think the FBI is embarrassed. I think the FBI is embarrassed. Finally, when in last spring, we went back, no, it was the Chronicle reporter, Kevin Fagan, in response to a Casebreakers release saying, we got his DNA. Would Riverside please test those? Just look at the printouts, right? And make the announcement. I think it was Fagan, Kevin Fagan, found from the FBI office that they had changed their tune a little bit. For years, they would say, out of respect for the victims, who they hadn't talked to for years, but we had. Out of respect for the victims, we have no more comment on this matter. This time, the reporter asked, is Gary Francis Post one of your suspects? Is he like your top suspect right now? And they said for the first time, that wonderful non-denial denial, right? We can neither confirm nor deny that Gary Francis Post is a Zodiac Killer suspect for the FBI. I just think they're just embarrassed. And eventually, at a certain point, they're going to hold their little news conference. It'll be a big one. And they're going to say, we finally closed the case because we believe through a preponderance of evidence that Gary Francis Post is a Zodiac Killer. Flash forward again. Reason why they said that was Casebreakers went to Riverside Police again. They'd worked tried, in the background as peers, all these old officers and forensics professors and that sort of thing who were on the Casebreakers to try to get Riverside just to take a look. Well, this time we got the DNA, we gave it to them. I worked with the Casebreakers, but I'm not a member of the Casebreakers, but I work with them because they're doing great work. And one of the things they did was they said, please take a look. And Riverside, who had been investigating the murder of co-ed Sherry Jo Bates since 1966, has since that point said nothing. Now, you think if they were sure that they have their own suspects, but they won't name what they are, if they didn't think Gary Post was a Zodiac Killer in that case, which may or may not be a Zodiac Killer case, but it's pretty easy to find out now because they've got his DNA. If it didn't match, you think they would just simply say, it doesn't match, please go away. They haven't done that. It's been since late spring, early summer, not a comment from the Riverside Police Department. So I urge your viewers to send an email, call Riverside Police and say, please release the results of your DNA sitting there on your computer screens. And I don't know why they're not. Maybe they are embarrassed too. There's a thing called the thin blue line. Cops got to protect their own, right? And there's a thing, where people try to solve cases and then hand it to the officers. And certainly if they got it, dead to rights, they're going to use it, right? But maybe Riverside is just as embarrassed as the FBI. This is one humble old journalist's opinion. I can't explain it any other way. It's like, I just think they want just wait until there's a old saying, the death spiral. Cold cases eventually go away because anyone who ever cared about them died. And so if you wait long enough, you don't have to reveal that, oh yeah, by the way, Gary Francis Post was a Zodiac Killer. I don't know what's going to happen.
Who was Gary Francis Post?
Gary Francis Post, we did a police profile on Gary Francis Post. And Gary Francis Post was an Air Force radar man in 1959 in Indiana, based at a radar base there, when he and a buddy got into a drunk driving accident. His buddy was killed, and he was hit in the forehead, and there was visible scarring from that. And he was in the hospital for months. And when he got out of the hospital, according to Air Force men that I interviewed who worked with him back then, the first thing he did is he gets to the base, and there is his wrecked car in front of the base with a sign by the head of the base, right in front, big as life, saying, "Don't be like these airmen, don't drink and drive." He later told around the campfire to these younger men, the old man, as they always like to be called, he later told them, as they were smoking pot and drinking brandy out in the backwoods in Yosemite, that he was deeply shamed by that. And the next thing they do is they send him to the Siberia of the U.S. Air Force, Thule Air Base, the DEW line, direct electronic line of radar, far as you can go in the Greenland area. And all he said to the young men is, for months I had two choices. I could look outside of the barren wasteland, or I could look at my radar screen. A circle with a cross. A circle with a cross. And for those of you who have followed Zodiac Killer, that is the Zodiac Killer symbol, which we now believe was a radar screen representation. So,
okay, now did he have brain damage or anything related to that head injury you're discussing?
Yes. I've never seen a medical report on it, but it's almost like there's a map saying I've been hit in the head, right there on his forehead. And you later see that right there. That's a police sketch. That's not saying, oh, that's just the sketch artist, trying to fill in some lines. Okay, so be it. There it is.
When did he get out of the Air Force?
And I found his documents for when he got in, and I got that, but I don't know the exact year. But I do know he was transferred to Vandenberg Air Force Base in California on the coast, and that's important because in 1963, two lovers on senior cut day were brutally murdered on Gaviota State Beach. And evidence there, among other things, was size 10 shoes, Wing Walker military shoes were there. Gary Francis Post wore size 10 Wing Walker boots for years. We have pictures of him wearing them. The ammo that was used to kill those young lovers was bought at Vandenberg Air Force Base. So,
okay, he was in the Air Force still while at the same time they were killed?
Yeah, that would be 63, if memory serves. And so, yeah, and we kind of backed into that because at one point, Santa Barbara police, county police, they thought that that was a Zodiac killing, but they could never prove it. I suggest they take a look again at that. So then he gets out of the Air Force, and he becomes.
Now, were those the only killings that occurred while he was in the Air Force?
No, I don't think so. I think there was another one. The Oceanside cab driver was in 62. That's one that I had looked at as well. It's in the book, Catching Zodiac. So you can take a look at that as well. But he gets out of the Air Force. He becomes a house painter, a union house painter in the Bay Area. So he's in the Bay Area. And he then essentially is working and hunting and poaching in the areas where the killings actually happened, Lake Berryessa. He used to tell the young men he liked poaching and shooting his animals in the Lake Herman, Benicia area. I grew up just down the road from Blue Rock Springs, Lake Herman, all those places. I played college golf at Blue Rock Springs where one of the killings happened. So this area is where he was hanging out. I have to say that there was another angle too. In 1966, Sherry Jo Bates, as I mentioned earlier, was murdered at Riverside. Well, we were later able to learn that he was going for medical treatment at March Air Force Base, which is just down the road from Riverside. So we were able to, Casebreakers was able to place him in the area around the time of the Bates killing as well. But then here's the thing, you go forward what he does every single time is he's glorifying his name. He's posting his name, post. And just an example, sure, there was a shooting. 2 kids were killed at a Lover's Lane in December 1968, and there's no recording to police of the call, right? That probably did take place. There's no copy. But then you go to July 4th, 1969, in Blue Rock Springs, and after he shoots the 2 lovers at this, Blue Rock Springs course where Lover's Lane, he calls Vallejo police and says, "I want to report a double murder." Well, one of them lived, but that's what he said. And then he went on to say where you could find them. And then you flash forward to Lake Berryessa, Napa, in September, and he does the same thing. But in this case, he puts a hood on, and he ties them up, and he stabs them in the back.
Early last Saturday evening, Celia Shepard and Brian Hartnell, both in their early 20s, were sitting on this knoll of land overlooking part of Lake Berryessa. They thought they were alone, but there was a third man on this knoll, a man who wore a medieval-style executioner's hood, carried a knife and gun, and intended to use them.
To not bury it, essentially, he stabs him in the back, and using the British term of phrase, it would be posterior, right?
Correct. And I didn't figure that out till years later. But just to flash forward here, if you look at the definition of post, and you just go down the list of what it says, it's like he was glorifying his name by checking off everything, right down to doing, some evidence site work at the Vallejo racetrack, where I used to lose money, so I know that area very well there. But he would get that off, and then later Anagram Solutions, he would say it's post time, which is what you say, various things like that. Or like he posted a note on the car door at Lake Berryessa. What did he do? He wrote on the car door. And by the way, there's only a few letters there, but you can easily spell post. And again and again and again, I believe he was glorifying his name. And where did he kill in 1969? The cabbie, right? The posterior of the head.
Okay, so when was the last murder that was associated to him?
I'm stating this, right? Only me. But I believe that the parents of Gwenny McDowell, who grew up being taught right next door to Gary Francis Post how to shoot guns by Gary Francis Post, because her father never shot weapons. He was like a fireman, like a Cal Fire guy. And we learned that the next door neighbors, the McDowells, Gary and Mrs. Post, were the McDowells. And it was pointed out to me that I should try to contact Gwenny. And I did. She was in the Great Northwest. And at first she thought I was cuckoo. But I said, I'm investigating your parents' murders. She goes, they were suicide. And I said, well, what do you know? She tells me that her mother was semi-suicidal, and Gary Post hated that woman. But then why would he give her his gun so that she can go out in a car and shoot herself in the head? The deputy at the time gave the gun back to, well-known in the community, Gary Francis Post. And because there was a suicide note there, ruled it a suicide. That's why he gave the gun back. Flash forward years later.
Now, when was that?
I don't have the date in front of me, but it would be in the aughts, right? I'm gonna think.
Okay, early 2000s. Fair enough. Okay.
So then years go by. The husband remarries, and he's having drinks with Gary Post on Sunday, I think it is. And by the way, to your viewers, if a couple of these dates and numbers are wrong, forgive me. It's all in the book.
That's fine. That's fine.
So, why, if you're just drinking with Gary Post, do you suddenly decide that you're going to go down and get your shotgun, put it in your mouth, and pull the trigger? Who are the people reporting that suicide? Gary Francis Post. Who was the first person that they talked to? One of the first person that they talked to when Mrs. McDowell was killed? Gary Francis Post. I can't prove it, but I'm telling you, since they're all dead, and none of them can sue me, I'm going to take a look and see and say, hey, wait a second. We went with our evidence to the Tuolumne County Sheriff again and again and again. And they investigated, and nothing's come of it. So the answer to your question is, I think the McDowells, Gwenny McDowell says to me, frankly, I could never understand why my parents would kill themselves years apart. I kind of blame myself, but that's just not true, Gwenny. It wasn't your fault. I think you just had the misfortune of living next to a serial killer.
Let me ask again then, because this is new to me. When is the generally accepted last murder?
I believe it would be Donna Lass. It is being linked because they just recently found her skull in the evidence locker since 1986 and matched it to the DNA that was taken by Salt Lake City, South Lake Tahoe police in 2019. I shared a copy of the book. With the family of Donna Lass, who went missing in September 1970, up at the South Lake Tahoe casino, and was never found. And in the book, in the manuscript in 2019, the Lass family, 2 sisters and a niece, they went to South Lake Tahoe, and for a variety of reasons. But one of them was one had a copy of the book, and they took the sick treasure maps, anagram solutions that are in the book, and they went right to the dock in the MS Dixie, just as we did several years before, and they used the clues to walk straight to the tree evidence site that we found in 2015 in June as well, and reported it to South Lake Tahoe Police. South Lake Tahoe Police, wonderfully, when the last family was there, after they left the tree site, they took a DNA sample. That DNA sample was used to match the skull that they'd had in their evidence locker since 1986. Now, that skull was found miles away. We believe that just like Gary Francis Post had done before, and did with animals as well, that he, and this is so sick, but he would boil up his animals he had killed, raccoons, bears. He'd boil them in what's called a live bath, LYE bath. And then he would hang the skeletons around his property. And I think that's what he did to Donna Lass. And I think the reason why he did that to Donna Lass is what he told his wife, and we had him in the taped interview, and also 2 cellmates that became jailhouse snitches for me when he was finally sent to jail for throwing his wife down that staircase, or however he almost killed her, in which he stated that he was mad at Donna Lass because he knew her from his time being treated for a gunshot wound up in San Francisco the year before, as well as his brother was there at the hospital. And the story is, according to Larry Lowe, who is the former roommate of Donna Lass, 2 things from Larry. Donna Lass used to work at Letterman and then moved up to Lake Tahoe. And this guy that was the brother of Gary Francis Post was mad because he had hit on her several times as a young nurse, and she always spurned him. And that made Gary Francis Post so mad that when he literally told the jailhouse snitches the story that's why he took care of Donna Lass. Quite a trail of sadness.
Okay, now where I'm going with this question, and to wrap things up, is why did he stop?
I don't know that he stopped.
Is there any others that are associated with him or anything there? Did you learn anything from Chris Avery or anybody else?
About further killings? No. So, I mean, the book Catching Zodiac focuses mostly on, it's a memoir, focuses mostly on how we came to learn and how we went to the FBI over and over again, and how I figured out how to use Zodiac letters to get to evidence sites. because they're actually, several of them are treasure maps, sick treasure maps, but certainly they are. And we followed those to Lake Tahoe. And I think that the skull that was recently found in the evidence locker, we think that I'd like to see that police report from 1986. Well, how did a deputy come to find a skull, not a decapitated head, but a skull? And we're saying that he boiled Donna Lass up so that all that was left was the skull and the bones. And so we think that he went back 15 years later, 15 years of having his prize up in the tree, saw that the branches were finally falling away, and went back using his 40-foot painter's ladder and just took her down. Now, why did he decide to call about the skull there? Well, he was posting again, I'm guessing. I'd like to know more, and I've totally volunteered to South Lake Tahoe Police anything they need to try to solve this mystery. But I'd like to leave, and they're doing it now. I'd like to leave this thing to your listeners, to your viewers. Contact Riverside Police. Say, please test Gary Francis Post's DNA. Look on your computer screen with your killer's Sherry Joe Bates thing. Find that out. Maybe we're wrong. Let us know. Then we'll strike the Bates case off the Zodiac Killer case. But Gary Francis Post was the Zodiac Killer.
All right. Well, Dale, thank you so much. And hopefully at least some testing can occur. I don't see
Well, I'll just
why
be honest
not.
and say there's no need to do testing. We already did. They have the DNA printouts. All they have to do is look at that and say yay or nay.